On this episode, we had Liz Leonard. Liz is a returning guest. She is a franchise advisor and the author of the great book, Your Franchise Fast Pass. She talks about franchise business ownership. I think you're going to love this podcast. I cannot wait for you to listen to it. Please like and subscribe. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the Hole in the Wall Business Podcast with Bill and James. I'm James Groves, and along with my business partner, Bill Dement, we want to share our journey as small business owners with you. As owners of Hole in the Wall Drywall Repair, we will attempt to peel back the curtain of owning a small business in the trade service industry and talk about the many adventures of owning a small business. Hey, Bill.
James, good morning to you.
Good morning to you. I like days like today where we get to have a repeat visitor, a guest on the show, and someone who is really kind of near and dear to us and our heart and kind of our growth as a company.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice that we can, and since the last time she was here, we've been able to meet up and join her at conferences and kind of talk through things. So
she made an interesting comment in the pre-show there. Like, it's interesting to talk to you guys now that you're all grown up.
Yeah.
And we have this conversation all the time that, you know, we don't have a PhD yet, but we're not in elementary school anymore. We don't know everything, but we don't know nothing anymore.
Yeah.
And it is fun the more we learn, it's like every 6-8 weeks, it's just like, you just know more, you know, you don't know what you don't know till you get into it. But that's always fun to have somebody back who knew us really early. We were in elementary school when she was here last time.
We were barely in diapers, still in diapers. So anyways, without further grandeur there, I would love to introduce our friend Liz Leonard. Liz, welcome. Liz she is a franchise advisor. She has been around the block a few times in the world of business, and she's also a franchise consultant, and she has an author, written a wonderful book that I highly recommend. And Liz, thank you for being here. Thanks for showing up on this Zoom call. We don't do many Zoom interviews, but this is a great one because you're nowhere near Orlando, are you?
I am not. I'm in the Portland main market, but I have been to your location. It's very nice. And the weather was really nice too. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's about to get cold here. It's going to get, I think in the 60s.
You know, I had to put on long pants today, James. Yeah.
You guys have to shovel snow yet up there?
Not yet. It's actually going to be in the 50s this week. The weather, I mean, it's mild, but it's beautiful for Maine. So the snow is coming, I'm sure.
Awesome. Well, more power to you. Listen, do me a favor. Let's just take a quick step back. I mean, you've been on the show before. I'll link your last episode in the notes, but just kind of refresh our memories. Kind of what's your background, what led you into franchising, and then I want to kind of dig into your book a little bit.
Yeah, that'd be great. My background, pretty short and sweet. I'm an educator by college, went into senior healthcare, was my corporate gig for many, many, many years. Valued that time in senior healthcare, a lot of great friends. And obviously I love that industry. And then when our girls were very small, we were looking for an accredited school to put our children in, and we couldn't find that at the time. And I was working at the hospital in public relations and working with all kinds of different healthcare professionals, listening to them say, the city, we need this. And I thought, okay, I'm looking for that. So is probably 85% of the employees at the hospital. And why don't I see if I could build this thing? And so we set out to do an RFP on a building, 10,000 square foot building, went to the town city meetings, had to prove our concept. We did a business plan. We got an SBA loan. We put a childcare business in that building, and we put in a new playground. We did a parking lot. We did a traffic study. The list goes on, right? These are all the pieces to building a business, and I won't share all of them, but it was a journey. It was a very, very long journey. And the icing on the cake, we opened in a recession. So who knew that was coming? And wherever you were in 2006, we opened January 22nd of 2007. And, my husband and I looked at ourselves. We had our house on the line with a $1.2 million SBA. I walked away from my $200,000 healthcare position and said, okay, hopefully we did the right thing. And, just pray to God, everything works out. And it did. Our girls, by the time we got the school open, were too old to go to the school. They did come for the summer program, but we launched with 80 children, but the capacity was 140. And then we hired 22 full-time teachers, all degree teachers. So That was my world starting from January 22nd on. If I had a do-over, I get this question a lot. The only thing I would do over is I would not go in as a full-time acting director. I was there every day and I was responsible for too many things, wearing too many hats. And it was a lot. So I went in with my, I think, superwoman cape, thinking I could do everything, and a little bit of a misnomer, and leveraging skill sets, which is what I currently do with people now as a franchise advisor. But I'd never managed people before, and especially 22 women. It was hard. And the turnover rate was hire, fire, train. And, it was tough. But I learned a lot, and I do share some of that experience with people if they're on the fence about, oh my gosh, I've never managed people. What am I going to do? Do I hire somebody to help me? And then one of the other things that we did, and I do share this a lot, and I look back on it now, and it's interesting. It was just like franchising. So, in order to open $1 million business and buy a piece of real estate too, you're going all in, right? You
Yep.
are all in. There's no turning back. I thought, can I find somebody to help me build this business so I know I'm doing it right? Because I wanted to have confidence. I wanted to have the courage, and I just wanted to do it smart. I didn't want to make any mistakes and look back. So we hired another woman, let's call her a consultant because that's what she was at the time, who had operated and built 14 schools in the Silicon Valley. I was referred to her through a colleague in education, and I flew out and met her, and I said, here's what I'm doing. Here's my business plan. I think I have everything right, but would you look it over? And so she spent hours with me looking everything over, from floor plans to equipment, the parking lot, the playground, all the pieces to it. And she said, "You look like you need some help." And I said, "You know what? I do need some help. Will you help me?" And she said, "I will." She said, "I'm going to share my blueprint with you, from my vendor discounts with all my equipment. I'm going to help you with the design on your building." She said, "I'm going to help you with all your background checks, how to hire staff, your website. I'm going to help you do your marketing, your soft opening." The list went on. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is like a gift from heaven. And we paid her $65,000. And she was with me for 1 year. And she was at my grand opening. So I share that analogy with many people because it did help endorse my product and service. And coming from a healthcare background, never operating a business, did I have kind of a little bit of fear and uneasiness? Absolutely. But having somebody to call and being on my own island just made me feel so much, I could just be self assured. I could be more confident in the questions and the decisions. So, anyway, I wanted to share a little bit about that.
Yeah.
And then from there, we sold it 3.5 years later. We did keep the real estate, so we still were landlords, still had that big fat monthly lease payment of 10 grand a month.
Yikes.
And one of the colleagues I used to work with in healthcare had a self-storage business. Her husband passed away suddenly, which was very sad. We ended up purchasing the self-storage business from her. Timing's everything in life. We had proceeds from the sale of our business. We needed to take that money and park it somewhere or invest it. And it worked out that we helped her with some of her billing because she didn't know how to do that. And then we had a chance to kind of look into the financials. And we actually had one of our business brokers that helped us sell our business work with her, and we ended up buying it. So we shifted from my corporate career in healthcare into the accredited childcare center, then into self storage, and said, okay, what's next? So we looked into franchising, and I did go back to work briefly for one of my healthcare companies. And this is another kind of analogy that I share with people. I thought, oh, I'll fill some time. I'll go get a job for a little bit till I figure out what I want to do, which I hear this from a lot of people, right? In franchising, I'm just going to get a job for a little while, but I really want to have a business.
Right.
And I got laid off. Very humbling experience.
Mhm.
And it was our anniversary. I'll never forget it.
Oh no.
And I said, that's it. That's my sign. That's the sign from God. I'm not going back.
Mhm.
So we end up looking into franchising, and that was really kind of another vehicle for us. I didn't have the energy to do another startup, to be honest. It is a ton of work. You guys have done one,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
Well,
it's
that's
a lot.
that's a subject that's kind of been on our brains for a while. We just did a podcast on it a few weeks ago, and it's like, people want to, like, I've had employees of mine that leave to go start their own drywall business. It's like they don't realize how difficult it is and how much effort it goes into starting a business. You can absolutely start a business. And if you know what you want to do and you're good at it, good, more power to you. The problem is if you're a good drywaller, that doesn't mean you're a good business executive. Doesn't mean you know how to do your taxes and how to separate personal and business funds and
how do you market and
how
get
to
your
market.
phone ringing, and how do you budget your time to go do estimates and still be able to do the work and service the vehicle, and on and on and on.
Yeah, and if you've never done the business side, the marketing side, the developing of the brand, so to speak, then you're kind of stuck, learning from scratch. It took us 8 years to really kind of dial in our business, and we're not dumb people. We're pretty smart people. But I mean, it took 6 years just to get the trademark and get the right websites and get the right branding guides all done and find the right partners to help us with that. And that's kind of what is nice to talk about with you, because you were in corporate, you started your own business from scratch, you acquired another business, but then you still decided to purchase a franchise. So you decided to, instead of starting from scratch again, you and your husband bought a franchise, right?
We did. Yeah. It's in the kitchen remodeling space. So it's in the service brand space, just like you guys are. We thought, well, heck, we already diversified with real estate. It really wasn't a good time to buy more real estate. And that, the buildings we owned at the time were, $1 million properties. So we thought, well, let's diversify with cash flow. Why not? Let's take a look and see what's out there. And so hundreds and hundreds of service brands, that was a little overwhelming. But I think, what I work with a lot of couples, and you probably do too. And depending on which person is looking to operate the business, we can match skills based on that. But in my particular case, when I started looking, I wanted 0 employees. And it may not sound realistic, but I did recognize that, with my superwoman cape, I was not good at managing people. And, it's okay. I can't be good at everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we started looking, I thought, okay, what can I find that doesn't have people? Is that possible? So I couldn't find anything at the time. I was working with a franchise consultant in North Carolina, and she kept bringing back senior care over and over, and healthcare and fitness, and they all had in place. And I just said no. And so I kind of walked away, but I did learn a lot through that process. It was definitely valuable and opened my eyes. And then I shifted into, okay, well, let's just take a break from this. And she actually reached out to me a couple months later and said, I've been thinking about you. You should do what I do. You should be a franchise consultant. And I said, oh, I can educate, I can empower, I can help match people. I get to learn about a robust industry. And I thought, that's great. So I did kind of move forward with that. And then we ended up buying the franchise, which gave me more time to kind of analyze all those options, because there's so many options.
Right. And then learning the process of how to find the right business for your candidate. I mean, that's not easy, right? So learning the tips and all the little nuances of people's psyche.
Yeah. Yeah. And referencing the book again. I mean, that last year I wrote a book. I don't know who has spare time in their life to write a book, but I wrote a book and I worked with a publishing company. And one of the reasons I wanted to put the book together is to make sure people are more educated and informed, and they have more tools and resources. There are a lot of people out there just like me, but they may not have the experience, and they may not have the knowledge level, and just that kind of grit and grind, running businesses. And I think that, the more information we can put in front of people, it helps them kind of align their decision and goal setting and leverage their skills. We give everybody a skills assessment. So the book talks about a lot of those different pieces to it. But one of the best pieces to the book is we interviewed owners. I wanted to hear from them. The book is not about Liz. I might have my story, which you've heard, but we wanted to hear from the people. Why did you buy a franchise? So it's all in there. There's 8 of them.
Very cool. And so this book is really for people who are flirting with the idea of either opening their own business or buying a franchise. It kind of helps them walk down that path of decision making, right?
It does. And, I think for many people, they call it an ocean of franchises. And it really is. I think the ocean's actually getting bigger day by day out there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they don't know where to start. And you do need to work with a tenured advisor like myself to make sure that we are identifying, is your market big enough? Does the population match where it should be? Do you have financing? I send everybody to get pre-qualified. That is a prerequisite to work with me. Now, many other consultants don't do that. So we have a whole chapter on funding and making sure that you are, prepared. We also have a whole chapter on exit strategy. So when you get into a business, What it's a vehicle. It's going to take you places. Quentin, who is in my book, calls it a vessel, by the way. He's a military guy. I call it a vehicle, and it has a destination, and we have a plan, and we're going to stick with the plan. But, what is your goal in 10 years? Is it to sell? Is it to leave a legacy? And then I also try to teach people, what is the business going to provide to you? Is it freedom? Is it control? Is it security? Is it legacy? Is it a semi absentee model where you might be transitioning out of your job in 2 years? So we try to really reverse engineer the process and find out, what is this business going to do for you? Do you have what it takes? Are you financially qualified? Who are the people that are going to run it? And then we kind of back into, what can we find that fits everything that you're telling me that you have and that you want, that criteria. And that's what the book is about. We want people to be empowered, but we also need to make sure that franchising is a good fit, because you and I all know, listening to this, franchising is not for everybody.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But having the resource available is key. And I challenge people who are, they're griping about their job, their day to day, their 9 to 5, and they thought about opening their own business, and they don't know what the idea would be. Everyone says, well, do what you're passionate about, do what you love. Well, doing what you love doesn't necessarily pay the bills, right? I know a lot of musicians who are broke because they're just follow their passion of being a musician, doing what you love. But going down the franchise road, you're exposed to brands who've been around, either brand new like we are, or been around for decades, that have proven models. I've told the story a few times, but when our first franchisee was here for training, he kind of giggled one of the last days of training. He kind of like tapped his hand on his training manual, and he's like, "I feel like I'm ripping you off. I feel, because I know what it costs to start my own business. The franchise fee that I paid is a fraction of the cost, and I see the amount of work that you guys have put into this, and the training and all the support you've got, and all I'm paying is a small royalty, and I can have this entire business in a box for just a little bit of money." And so he's just like, "I feel like I ripped you off," and I love that, because he's happy, and B is like, I want 100 more of those guys out there making money, because obviously we don't make money on the franchise fee, we make money on the royalties, right? But as a franchisor, that was a hard nut to crack in our head. We were instructed to not go down the road of working with a franchise consultant or advisor like you. For some people who were kind of coaching us, "Oh, you're too small, they're too expensive, they pay high commissions, and you don't want, you're not ready for that yet." And I got to say, I think it was kind of a detriment, because we waited. It was almost 2 years from the time we started to where we decided that, no, we're going to go all in. It is expensive. It's not cheap. Being part of the brokerages, the companies that you're part of, the IFPG and the others that we're a part of, those are not cheap, right? But instead of us going to the individual candidates, going to the franchise shows and talking onesie twosies at people, we're now talking to smart people like you, and you guys have a pipeline already built with your business. So we're now able to train you about us. And when you are doing your analysis, you can find the right candidate and match us with the right candidate and present us, which is a whole mind shift for us, because it took us for a minute, because we were counting pennies and making sure that things were done right. But in the grand scheme of things, it's going to propel us as a brand.
Well, it'll accelerate our rate of growth the way no other method could.
Yeah. And then, just for us, because we're partnering with people like you, and with the groups like the IFPG and such, it's allowing us to be exposed to far more people than we could have imagined. And we're just kind of on the tip of the iceberg. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that. I mean, because obviously there's business brokers out there but being part of something like this, how do you find a consultant like you?
Usually referrals. I would say, I've been doing this 10 years. I don't think I shared that. And that's been a long time, but I love meeting people just to learn if I can help them. And of course, I can't help everybody. But I think the majority of the people for me are referring either people they know. In fact, I was just sitting here. I'm not checking my phone, but I just got a referral sitting here.
Yeah.
And if I do a good job and they can trust me, I want to be top of mind for them. And again, another reason to have a book on a bookshelf. Oh, yeah, that Liz, I need to call her. And so referrals are great. I do buy leads. I've been doing that for a long time. I think for me, I have to have a couple of different buckets of people to be able to kind of obviously survive, because you may not be able to survive on referrals. You might if you're retired, but word of mouth, past candidates, referrals, and marketing, just what you're doing. So I'm building my platform, Your Franchise Fast Pass. I have an educational portal for people to log into that are working with me. I am prepping them and preparing them before they even have a conversation with you.
Mhm.
So I'm doing a lot of this foundational skills, making sure their knowledge level. I give them a glossary of terms. We give them validation questions. We actually teach them a little bit about how to read an FDD, which you and I both know is usually a 300-page document, which just is overwhelming. So I love to have that educator role as well as the empowerment role, but also trying to match them. Are they a right fit for your brand so that I can send you a fully qualified candidate in a market that you're looking to open in? And it's just a wonderful synergy to be able to do that.
So are you looking for people? I'm just trying to think, like, what are some of the myths that people have on franchising that you can kind of dispel? Because I know we've talked about it. People think that you think of franchising, you're buying a McDonald's franchise, right? That's the big misnomer. But I mean, you can get into a business for not a ton of money, right? You,
You can. And it's interesting when I meet a lot of people and we have a 20-minute introduction call. That's it. And there's obviously no charge to work with me. And I would say that I call it head trash or assumptions that they have. We have to sweep that to the curb. And they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea, Liz, that there's so many different brands out there. We do have brick and mortar, which is where everybody's minds go: food, fitness, hair care. Now we have mental health. We have a Vertigo and Balance franchise. There's just so many on that brick and mortar side, if that is in their budget. And those are typically semi absentee models. But on the other side, home service brands, just like Hole in the Wall, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. We have coaching and training, which people forget about as well. We have another senior care franchise, which actually does placement, very similar to my role, but they match families to retirement communities based on medical needs, socialization, geographic market, food, culture, parking, transportation. You think of all these things that you would want if you were going to leave your home, right? So that doesn't require any employees. And that's a very simple model, very scalable, and very low investment. So I get to open the eyes of so many people to say, wow, this is really interesting to look at. And that's the fun part. We just had a new brand join our inventory, and it's a tailoring franchise. It's
Interesting.
mobile. Yeah. So who would have thought?
Wow.
Tailoring.
Yeah, where there's a need. I'm curious, just to flip it a little bit. What are you looking for in a franchisor that you might want to present to a candidate? And what are the characteristics that make a franchise easier for you to present and to work with?
I think having corporate locations is really important, especially if you're still growing, right? Being a young emerging brand, having a corporate location and having been open for many, many years. So you've got a proven system and the models there. I think it is, it's the foundation that needs to be built. And I'm sure you guys have even worked out, all the different kinks in your system. I mean, it takes time.
Mhm.
And having obviously people to talk to for validation is really, really important. And we don't always have that with emerging brands, but you do need to validate the business that you're buying. It's almost like try it before you buy it, and make sure that, the training went the way it's supposed to go, the support that you're getting from the franchisees, the coaching, right? And making sure you have enough working capital. So those are just kind of the tip of the iceberg in terms of what people are looking at. But, you have to look under the hood too, right? Sales, marketing, operations, accounting, finance, technology. There's probably a few I left out, but we need to make sure that those are all running and that they're strong systems, because you're going to adopt those systems. One of the other pieces too that I would love to see every franchise have, but I understand people are still growing and they're young, is having a dedicated business coach to work alongside of that somebody to even take a look at their P&L to make sure that they are growing the way they should be growing. Not everybody understands how to build a pro forma or to read a P&L. It's a little overwhelming. And so if they have a coach to sit alongside of them to say, okay, here's what you need to do, right? We know what our average ticket size is per day, per week, per year, per month. And then this is what you need to go after this month. Let's get, where are you at? And you need to build. So these are all things that I share with people, but emerging companies can be a great opportunity. They just need to make sure that it's the owner's story. The founders have so much value, and why did they build this franchise and what they are offering.
Did you know that there are over 140 million homes in the U.S.? 97% of them have walls and ceilings that are built using drywall. The drywall repair industry is simply enormous, valued at over $13 billion a year. We're hole-in-the-wall drywall repair, and for years we have been perfecting the art of repairing drywall, developing and refining our systems, and strengthening our brand. Our business model is simple, scalable, and easy to learn. We believe it's a real game changer. We are successful drywall repair pros who decided to take our repair business to a higher level, growing both our franchise training and support to industry-leading standards. You'll benefit from our vast experience helping your franchise hit the ground running and achieve success quickly. We'll give you access to our marketing team that has created strategic programs designed to get your phone ringing and booking new business fast. Join a fast-growing leader in an exciting dynamic segment of the home service industry by franchising with Hole-in-the-Wall Drywall Repair. Start building your own business and securing your own financial future today. Being an emerging brand ourselves, having the right pieces to that puzzle are key to us. There are things that we didn't know, like we've had brochures and all kinds of websites, but we didn't really know that a consultant really needs a 2-minute drill, a one sheet, needs to have some sort of collateral to present us, because as we sleep, there are people out there presenting our brand. We need to make sure they have all those pieces. And frankly, in the home services, there's a lot of home services. Now, for us, I feel we're a little bit blessed because there's not a ton of drywall home services. Obviously, you're not showing just drywall. You're showing all types of home services to somebody looking for that market. Is there anything that would make us kind of stand out in this big pile of brands as something that might be worth looking at?
Well, I think during the investigation process for any candidate, whether they were looking at drywall or something similar, which I highly encourage people to compare and contrast brands. Most of my candidates are looking at 3, if not 4 brands, which is a lot. And so they're meeting with each company, but they really have to look at, are all those systems just nailed down? Are you coming in and are you a pioneer? Can you affect change? Are you kind of being one of these pioneers coming in that they need to identify things that either they're still working out, right? Some companies are, let's face it, when you're young, you're still building, you're open for improvement. But I have people compare and contrast brands, and I think there's a lot of value to that. So Hole in the Wall may offer something different than this painting franchise or, this HVAC franchise. And it's really critical for them to take a look at the systems. And, I highly encourage people to do a spreadsheet on the differences between the brands. Write it down, everything you learn every week. So I have a sheet that I do share with people. And, if one of the companies is not helping you find customers, that's a problem. So, I don't know the specifics of Hole in the Wall, but customer acquisition is the first thing you need in a business.
The phone has to be ringing.
Yeah, I would be digging into that. What are you going to do to help me market? Because most people don't want to go door to door. That's like a thing of the past.
Sales is one of the things that frightens most people. Just knocking on doors, burning shoe leather, we call it, attending meetings, getting out there. The caution is we don't want a candidate that's going to want to hide behind the brand. You are hole in the wall once you open in your community, and we'll show you how to do it. But you have to have sort of the fortitude to go out there and do stuff. But we can and will make your phone ring. We have had instances where guys were here for training and their phone was ringing already before they left training, and they were already booking work. So we found that really encouraging.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a scary road though. I mean, and for us to just start franchising, we built some great systems, and we had to basically hire and train people to take, like for me personally, I was in the day-to-day role. I was talking to customers, doing estimates, managing employees. And there's no way for us to start the franchise route until I had a really good team and really somebody that could replace me. And when we found our general manager, it almost allows me to be a semi-absentee owner to the drywall business while I'm a full-time, franchisor. And so that was a neat thing, because franchising isn't for everybody. You have to be able to sell your brand. And frankly, one of the things that you talked about earlier that I really love is, what is the legacy? What do you want? I have a buddy of mine who started a landscaping business, and his father passed away, and he ran into some issues, and he just closed doors. He didn't sell his client list. He referred a friend of his that had another business, and he just basically had no exit strategy at all, where he very easily could have pulled back, put somebody to run it while he threw it on the market to sell it. He probably could have sold it for a few $100,000, but he didn't, because he didn't think about his exit strategy early enough in the game for it. And then, frankly, I have a lot of other friends of mine who own like financial advisor businesses or whatever, but that business hinges around that one person. So when that person doesn't feel like working or get sick or worse, their clients now have to go find somebody else, as opposed to having a business that can be sellable. So, which is why we like Hole in the Wall, because someday when Bill and I aren't in the business anymore, the brand will still continue, and we want to make sure we create a brand that had legs, that could be around for decades to come. Another thought: are there any faux pas? Are there any things that you've seen happen that you would counsel against doing, or things that have killed brands in the past that you've seen?
I think growing too quickly for some brands is a concern, and they just need to make sure that the ratio is there to support the new franchisees, and bringing them into training. But then it's almost like we referenced at the beginning of this call, where you guys are all grown up in franchising now. It's the same thing with your new franchisees. It's a hand holding, it's a support, it's a training platform. And they need to make sure that they have what they need, and they're comfortable actually picking up the phone and calling you if they have a question. I mean, I work with mostly men in this industry, a lot of couples, and some are very humble and they will not pick up the phone. So unless you're having coaching meetings and you realize that my numbers aren't where they're supposed to be this month, and maybe they have an SBA loan, and maybe they have a nut to crack of, I don't know what the burn rate could be, $5,000 a month, then they need to make sure that they are calling and asking for help. It's okay to ask for help. It's a partnership. And so they may not feel like they're well trained in an area. I feel like there needs to be more checks and balances back in with the franchisees, just because they've signed and they've opened, but just ongoing, making sure, because the better they do, the better you do. It's a two-way street. And I think strategically, some of the companies just bring in too many people too quick. And then it's like, okay, here's my pioneers that are still on this side. They still may need a lot of love and a lot of support. So that would be my one piece of advice, is to make sure that they have what they need. They're doing what the blueprint says they're supposed to be doing, and having coaching sessions with them. So you're bringing in new people, you've got kind of your tenured people, and maybe your tenured people might be able to work with the new people. And I think you also hit a good nail on the head too. I don't recommend going in and doing everything. I think it's not feasible. You can't wear every hat. You just bought yourself a job if you do that.
Yes.
So good luck with that.
Yeah. No, true.
Make a change. Hire people if you can
Mhm.
afford it, right? You need to be well capitalized to have people.
Yeah, and when working in the business will hinder you from working on the business, right? So we know that. It's true. And trying to find an executive that wants to, they could start in the truck, but the goal needs to be that they will pull themselves out of the day-to-day. Because frankly, for our model, you don't want to have just one vehicle and one or two technicians. You want to have multiple. I mean, we have almost 7 here in Orlando alone. We could use 10. That's how busy we are. And that's how you build scalability and you build bigger wealth, is by scaling. But you can't scale if you're too busy, doing the work yourself. So Liz, just to kind of put a bow on this, what's the best way for people to get a hold of your book? What's the best way for people to kind of reach out to you? I want to make sure that they have this resource in their pocket whenever they need it.
Yeah, yourfranchisefastpass.com is probably the easiest place to go. We do have a dedicated book page, which is just franchisefastpassbook.com, where we are giving out free complimentary copies of the book. We just want to get it into more people's hands so that when they need it, when they're ready, and sometimes they don't even know that the franchising is on the horizon, right? Till maybe they lose their job. And so I just want to get the book in as many hands as I can. And timing is a big thing to put the bow on it. When people are ready, they'll have the resource, they'll have the person, and they can start kind of looking. And it does take, 4 to 6 weeks to go through this process. So it's definitely planning and time, but it's their future. And, I work with a lot of people that are job hunting and they're considering the business. So I say we're going down 2 lanes together. And throughout that process, whatever is meant to be will be meant to be, but there's no harm in looking.
Well, and that's another one last point. It's great because to have somebody with your caliber as a consultant doesn't cost anything. You're there to help them make the right choice for them and their business. And so it's nice to be able to have the expertise from somebody like you with these years and years of experience without having to do this journey solo. One thing we talk about a lot: you don't do business in a vacuum. You have to have help. You have to have counsel. We all have business coaches. We have a sales coach we just brought on, and we want to make sure that we're not trying to do things by ourselves. Being the hat wearer for every hat is not sustainable long term. So, well,
Totally
awesome.
agree.
Great job, Liz. Thank you so much for coming today. Any other last thoughts before we let you go?
No, New Year's is coming. I don't know when this is going to be published, but I think, New Year's resolutions are always critical in everybody's kind of plan. So if franchising's on your mind and you're franchise curious, let's just have a call.
Yeah. Wonderful. I love it. This will be out the week of Thanksgiving. So great timing. Liz, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Stay warm
Thank
up
you.
there in Maine. Someday I'll visit Maine when it's not cold. And thanks.
Sounds good. Anytime. You're more than welcome. We'll go on the boat.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Liz. Thank you, everyone, for listening. It was a great show. We'd like to thank you for listening to the Hole in the Wall Business Podcast with Bill and James. We'd love for you to join our Facebook group and keep the conversation going. If you'd like to learn more about us and our business, check us out at holeinthewall.com. If you'd like to learn more about how to start a Hole in the Wall franchise, go to holeinthewallfranchising.com.